Good afternoon and good evening, everyone. It's a really pleasure for me to be presenting today at the seminar on enhancing capacity of Ethiopia to address climate change. And I manage UNDP's environment program here in Seoul. And also I co-lead UNDP's Green Economy Partnership for Action on Green Economy work in about 20 countries now. So I'll start my presentation with screen share. Just a second. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I'm trying to reduce this one. Okay, so yes, so as you can see from the first slide, this is about 2030 agenda and the Paris Agreement and aligning our work on SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, nationally determined contributions, and REDD+. So let me now start with the next slide. Let's start with what UNDP does on climate and forest. So we deliver technical assistance, policy advice, quality assurance to support national and subnational REDD+ readiness, implementation and financial mechanisms, and quality assurance support to country offices during implementation of the REDD+ projects. Also policy advisory services and technical assistance to national counterparts. Upon receipt of requests from country offices, we provide strategic advice to countries in structuring REDD+ results, and also in terms of receiving the results-based payment. So in terms of the support services, in the three phases of REDD+, is the readiness phase, is the implementation phase, and the results phase. So in the readiness phase, looking into the assessing the drivers of deforestation, collecting forest data, stakeholder engagement, and determining the scale and scope of REDD+ activities. Also developing the 4 Warsaw Framework components. In the implementation stage, implementing the policies and measures to address the drivers of deforestation. And results is looking into results recognized and rewarded through results-based payments. And so in UNDP's work in the climate and forest sectors, in readiness, there are 34 countries have advanced their national REDD+ strategies or action plans. And also 35 subnational jurisdictions across 8 countries have developed their REDD+ strategies for forest transformation plans. In terms of implementation, 9 countries with costed REDD+ investment or implementation plans. And also from UNDP, we're supporting Ecuador, for example, to receive about 42 million from the Green Climate Fund for the implementation of its national REDD+ action plan. And in DRC, also working on operationalizing the national REDD+ fund and accessing additional fund from the Central Africa Forest Initiative. That you may have heard of in terms of implementation of REDD+ investment plan. So this CAF initiative was also interesting because Korea is also part of this Central Africa Forest Initiative as a donor country. And actually related to this, let me just refer to what the previous speaker was saying, that the next World Forest Congress is going to be held in Korea. And even though I manage the environment program here, I'm not a forest specialist. So this presentation was prepared with the support from my forestry colleagues who work in the headquarters. We have also forestry team in Geneva and also different regional centers, including in Nairobi and other places. But for the World Forestry Congress that's going to be happening next year, I'm representing UNDP in the consultative group for the Forestry Congress. So in that sense, yes, it's very interesting to be part of this process. And we are also doing some forestry pilot projects in different countries. In Africa, we are working in Ghana so far. And of course, we are involved with Professor Chong's initiative in Ethiopia. So, and sorry?
Sarwat, can you just have a full screen? There has been some request if you can. If we want to keep this format, that's fine. But if you can, yes, yes.
I think
okay.
It worked.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Right.
That was the previous slide, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Still in the
Sorry.
previous slide? No, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, this is much better. So yes, and then the last point about the support service in the 3 phases of REDD+ is the results. Having results recognized and rewarded through result-based payments. So what I wanted to say here is UNDP is acting as an accredited entity and the countries that have already received the REDD+ results-based payments from GCF, UNDP supported them, Brazil and Ecuador. So Ecuador for 18.5 million and Brazil for 96 million. So now let me see. Okay, so in terms of integrating and enhancing REDD+ in the NDCs. So REDD+ represents the land use change and forestry. So this LULUCF component of the nationally determined contribution in many countries. And national readiness countries have already been working for years in a very participatory manner on LULUCF. And then, of course, in terms of NF, a lot of acronyms, I'll try to spell them out. NFMS is the National Forest Monitoring System, which should be flexible and allows for improvement and building up on existing systems. And also the FREL approach, which is a Forest Reference Emission Levels, which is a benchmark for emissions exclusively from deforestation and forest degradation. So in this kind of integration work, the REDD+ strategy and investment plan, we are looking into robust analysis and consensus on the drivers of deforestation and forest degradation, ambitious national plan, and related sectoral and cross-sectoral targets that may be integrated to the national determined contribution as conditional targets and or conditional to external financial support, and also in the definition of an implementation framework that countries can capitalize on in terms of the implementation of their NDCs. And also implementation in terms of the social and environmental safeguards to ensure that not only do no harm, but also maximization of non-carbon social and environmental benefits so that contributes to the sustainable development goals. So let me go to the next slide. Okay, so in terms of integrating and enhancing REDD+ in the NDCs, again, a significant implementation challenge is that within national governments, teams are working on the NDC and the REDD+, often from different ministries. Or even if it's one ministry, there may be different sections within the ministry, and they do not always connect or coordinate. And along with this coordination challenge, there is also the timing issue. So because most countries, in terms of national REDD+ strategy or NRS, can be different from other REDD+ readiness elements, and also working on NDC enhancement. But now is the time to make these connections or improve the existing ones, because there are a diverse set of benefits for countries able to integrate and enhance REDD+ in the NDCs. That includes increasing the robustness and credibility of their NDC, maximize opportunities for international financial support through clear targets and activities backed up by very participatory processes with clear social and environmental safeguards. Okay, next slide. So the next slide is talking about there is a need to match NDC on the ground with global support. And with this in mind, in 2019, UNDP conducted a major survey of countries on their plans for 2020 with respect to revising NDCs and current NDC implementation status, and also critical bottlenecks and success factors. So this UNDP's survey was organized around 7 core building blocks of the NDC architecture, and more than 130 countries responded, making it the largest survey of its kind to date. So that's interesting, and this kind of in this link you can find more information about this. So the surveys produced a list of objectives for revising the NDCs, including creating support, stronger links with SDGs, as well as alignment with development and sectoral plans and targets. And this was the second most important reason for planned revisions to NDCs, cited by 88 governments. Also, only strengthening of underlying data and evidence ranked higher, actually from 92 nations. And 67 nations intend to incorporate considerations about gender equality and women's empowerment into their revised plans, recognizing that the vital roles that women can play in combating impacts of climate change that we know, and also helping to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases. Also, tighter links with development goals can reinforce action to eliminate poverty and hunger, which is the first sustainable development goal, goal 1. So this information and this bottlenecks and success factors have actually served as the launching pad for UNDP's climate promise, which takes me to my next slide. So UNDP's climate promise, this is kind of delivered with a wide variety of partners. It is the world's largest offer of support for the enhancement of climate.
Please turn off the microphone.
Okay, so thank you. So this climate promise was announced by UNDP last year in September 2019, and the idea is to support 100 countries enhance their nationally determined contributions by 2020 with demonstrated increase in ambition. So that's why we're talking about enhanced ambition. UNDP will support countries to undertake an inclusive and transparent process to revise and submit their enhanced NDCs by 2020, provide technical and financial support across a tailored set of services to address bottlenecks and kind of scale up success factors. So, and this kind of enhancement, NDC enhancement actually captures the idea of NDC progression, which is already inherent in the Paris Agreement, starting with the invitation to communicate new or updated nationally determined contributions in 2020. And there is a guidance which is considering the following, the different dimensions of NDC enhancement: mitigation, noting that mitigation enhancement can increase ambition and or facilitate enhanced implementation. Then there's adaptation and communication, taking into account that objectives and requirements under the Paris Agreement vary across these components. So ideally, NDC enhancement process will bring indices more closely into alignment with the goals of the Paris Agreement and maximize the benefits of the NDC for development and resilience, incorporate relevant opportunities to strengthen implementation and improve transparency. Okay, I'll go to the next slide. So in terms of within this context of UNDP's climate promise, as of April 22, UNDP has received formal requests from 110 governments for support on their NDC enhancement under the climate promise. And you can see in this list, the list of countries, 35 from Africa, 27 from Asia Pacific. So basically Africa region, we have the most formal requests for support. There's also in terms of different countries of development, 36 least developed countries, 27 small island developing states, which are also very climate vulnerable, 13 high emitters of greenhouse gases, that have submitted their request. This 2020 round of NDC enhancement would effectively kickstart the Paris Agreement's mechanism for enhancing NDC ambition. Also, this 2020 process for enhancing NDC offers an opportunity to examine the ambition of the initial NDCs in light of progress that has been made. Furthermore, all country announcement of ambitions are being determined in the NDC tracker, which is actually in Climate Watch data. There's an NDC tracker, which I can actually share with you the link afterwards. Okay, so in the next slide, the UNDP's climate promise services, actually the menu of services for NDC in enhancement includes 5 specific services: building political will and societal ownership at the national and subnational.
Please turn off the microphone other than speaker, please.
Thank you. So yes, basically building political will is like buy-in from powerful ministries such as those in charge of planning or finance should be viewed as fundamental in this. Some countries have also found that peer-to-peer exchanges can help raise the interest of Ministry of Finance. For example, in an exchange between Honduras and the Dominican Republic organized by the NDC Partnership Support Unit, Honduras gained greater appreciation of the financial opportunities related to NDC implementation from the Ministry of Economy, Planning and Development of the Dominican Republic. So within this kind of peer-to-peer exchange, there is a heightened interest within Honduras. This example is of course with regard to NDC implementation, but lessons may be applicable to engagement of various ministries during NDC enhancement process as well. And also that, as you can see, the second service is the reviewing, aligning and updating. It's critical to ensure alignment between the NDC and other national development objectives, including that are reflected in the SDGs. An institutional process that brings together actors across a government, including ministries, with different mandates can play an essential role in helping to align the NDC and other national objectives. It's important, this alignment is important to achieve the greatest synergy because which also avoids contradictory objectives. To give an example, involving strategies for energy sectors, renewable and other sectors, for example. And in Lebanon, Lebanon is engaging actually. It's for a newly formed NDC committee to ramp up ambition in its NDC update. The membership of the NDC committee aims to ensure that NDC implementation goes beyond kind of this traditional sectoral viewpoint that we see in many countries, including planning, finance, and gender institutions. And so the 2015 NDC targets that were constructed using adapted ministerial strategies, and since then have updated and have emerged, which in the process of presenting and updating the NDC, So this updating of NDC and to institutionalize this process, the NDC committee's mandate also includes periodic assessment and revision so that the alignment and review all work together. I want to read through all of the five. So the next one is incorporate in the new sector and also the and/or the greenhouse gases, assessing costs and investment opportunities, and also monitoring progress and strengthening transparency. So I think it's also very important in terms of roles and responsibilities, as well as a clear timeline with clear milestones and a mechanism to monitor progress on the work plan. And should be designated from the start to set expectations and to achieve the desired timeline. So in terms of this can also consider important national milestone in the country we're talking about, including national budgets, elections, and other relevant events. Okay, next slide. So yeah, this is in the land use change sector. You are seeing 53 of the 110 countries are requesting LULUCF support in their climate promise activities. And in terms of regional distribution, again, we see from Africa, 28%, and Ethiopia is one of the countries there. And then also Latin America and Caribbean, 28%, followed by East Asia and Pacific. And we also have 2% from Middle East and North Africa and 17% from Europe and Central Asia regions. I'll go to next slide. So this slide basically giving some country-specific examples in forest-related activities in climate promise work plans. So in Zimbabwe, working on commercial timber conservation, local authorities, and working with the academia. This is looking into these subsectors for consultation and supporting the realignment of the forest policy with the revised NDC, supporting the finalization of national forest definition based on subsector consultations, and procurement of 6 increment borers for forest carbon qualification, and also training of collector modules for forest resource monitoring. And then, yes, I think and then you see the example from Cambodia and as well as in Paraguay. So I think these slides, I believe will be shared with you. So I will not, I'll go through this, read through this. Let me just move to my next slide. So in terms of opportunities to strengthen policies and measures in REDD+, specifically some examples that where REDD+ strategies and investment plans are already reflected in the nationally determined contributions corresponding levels of detail contained within the NDC on REDD+. In Ghana, for example, the national REDD+ strategy was developed same year as their national determined contribution submission, so same year in 2015. So this is well reflected in their NDC. However, many national REDD+ strategies are finalized after their INDC. So INDC is the before the NDC process. It was the intended nationally determined contribution. So in some countries, the timing didn't really synergize. So they had already finalized the REDD+ national strategies before the INDC submission. And so specificity and or quantification of the role of forests, therefore, is not currently reflected in those NDCs. And actually, in Cambodia, they actually referred to this issue in their first NDC through actions for LULUCF, though actions for LULUCF are presented as a conditional contribution, a precise list of actions, and the GHG impacts will be updated after finalization of the RED+ strategy. Okay, and I think in Ghana, the NDC specifies 5 components to meet their policy goal for the agriculture, forestry, and other sectors. So that's, yeah, follow sectors, which is agriculture, forestry, and other land use. And this is looking into promoting sustainable utilization of forest resources through RED+. So this is just an example from Ghana. And now I will move to the next slide, and I'll talk about examples of entry points for enhancing NDCs through forest mitigation. So in terms of review, aligning, updating, and existing targets and policy measures. So in many developing countries, the timeline for the implementation of national RED+ strategy action plans, coincide with the one of NDCs. And in that case, national RED+ strategies have been developed through participatory processes based on studies developed to identify drivers, for example, land tenure issues and carbon mitigation potential of various activities, and also may provide a good basis in many countries for identifying key forest sector activities, policies, and measures that could be readily integrated into the NDCs. In terms of entry points in monitoring progress and strengthening of transparency, improving the information elements that facilitate clarity, transparency, and understanding of the NDC, description of the assumptions and methodological bases that were applied, that's including the baseline and or reference levels, is also very important, especially for the land sector. And also setting up and or improving systems and processes for national forest monitoring systems and MRV, monitoring, reporting, and verification in the context of the enhanced transparency framework. So ETF, then enhanced transparency framework, which is under the Paris Agreement. And the last entry point is the incorporating of new sector and or greenhouse gases. The forest sector may be considered for inclusion where previously not included. In most cases, forests will likely have already been included in a more general or limited way. Inclusion of a new for RED+ activity not yet in the NDC may be a cost-effective enhancement, also leading to multiple co-benefits. So there are different benefits working together. So in a cost-effective manner, and for example, another example would be the inclusion of greenhouse gas and other gases, for example, non-CO2 greenhouse gases from the forest fires. Okay, so this slide is talking about the reviewing, aligning, and updating of existing targets, policies, and measures. So it's looking to the stock taking of NDCs, current scope, measures, timescales, and also pledges with national plans and policies. So comparing the current NDC against national strategies and plans, national communication, national adaptation and mitigation strategies, disaster risk reduction strategies, and as well as the Kigali Amendment to the Kyoto Protocol, among others. And then the next bullet point, we're talking about the inclusion of more robust data and information, scenarios, and key trends. So new data and information can be incorporated into a revised NDC to ensure that all targets and actions are quantified and remain up to date. And also they align with the national emission projections. And then assess NDC, SDG alignment and linkages, aligning NDC actions and the SDG. So kind of both synergies and potential trade-offs in this. Let me move to the next slide, which is incorporating new sectors and or greenhouse gases. This is looking into the identifying and assessing mining sectors, the complexity associated with incorporating new sectors or new gases in a new NDC will also depend on the domestic objectives of NDC enhancement and the quality and availability of relevant information, data that can be used to define targets, goals, policies, and measures. Sorry, I just went up. Okay, and also delivering tools for quick wins to incorporate common additional sectors and or gases. So there are several sectors in which the existing UNDP programs and projects can be leveraged. This includes nature-based solutions, including RED+. So nature-based solutions comprise the protection, restoration, and sustainable use of forests, grasslands, mangroves. Actually, behind me, you can see pictures of some mangroves that actually previous speaker also referred to, wetlands and other ecosystems. So these NBS or nature-based solutions can deliver at least a third of the cost-effective CO2 mitigation needed through 2030. So that's kind of the target here for, as you know, as we know that for the SDGs as well. And so nature-based solutions, looking into national adaptation plans for countries, and also national disaster risk reduction strategy. So it's kind of incorporating all these different national planning processes. And also very important, inclusion of gender and youth, the role of youth. So better identify, understand, and describe how and why gender differences and inequalities are relevant to the climate policies and actions proposed in a particular sector, and identify and address gender gaps and structural barriers to advancing gender equality and women's empowerment through climate actions. Okay, now we move to my next slide. So this is looking into the pathway for increasing nature-based solutions in the nationally determined contribution. So the NBSs that we referred to. So the pathway for increasing NBS in NDCs. So there's a 7-step approach for enhancing the NDCs through some nature-based solution. Though the step 1 includes, and I have a cover of that document, UNDP document, which you can actually access from the internet. So with the same title. So the 7 steps quickly. The step 1 looks into establishing an understanding of the national greenhouse gas accounting context. This step aims at creating a comprehensive understanding of the current context of GHG emissions by sources, as well as removal by sinks as essential exercise for countries' nationally determined contributions. Step 2 identifies and reviews existing nature-based actions in national legal and institutional frameworks. This step implies the identification of national nature-based solutions already in place as part of the country's plans, policies, strategies, and commitments. And so the idea behind compiling existing nature-based solution action is not only to make it evident to policymakers, but also to showcase the potential low-hanging fruits available to countries to enhance their NDCs. And then step 3 looks into identifying and reviewing nature-based actions in the current NDCs. This step includes a review of the current nature-based actions present in the country's NDC or the enhanced NDC proposal. And then step 4 looks into developing a rapid analysis of estimating the climate change mitigation and adaptation potential of the existing nature-based actions. So the objective of this step is to quantify the various paths that the country can follow. So by using the information from step 1, countries should be able to assess the climate change mitigation adaptation potential for their existing nature-based action in national legal and institutional frameworks, which are collected in step 2, and in their proposed NDCs identified in step 3. And then also in terms of of the 7 steps. And step 5 is the crosswalk nature-based solution pathways with existing measurable nature-based actions and identifying opportunities for enhancing NDCs using spatial data. And this step compares the existing nature-based proposed actions with the NBS potential pathways to identify further opportunities in nature-based actions could be captured within the country's national determined contribution plan. And then the 6th step is on integrating measurable nature-based actions into the NDC. So that includes setting quantifiable indicators that is very important to track progress to achieve the NDC goals. So, and the step 7 is improving and creating the enabling conditions to support implementation of NBS integrated into the NDC. So this step entails identification of the main enabling conditions needed to support NBS, so the nature-based solution enhancement or integration into the NDC. But again, if you're interested, this document would give you more additional details. So, and then this slide, yes, is talking about, looking into the monitoring progress and in the strengthening transparency in terms of technical guidance on implications of methodological and accounting processes in NDC, and also in terms of the identification and possible errors and inconsistencies, and making recommendation as for improving the CTU and advising on aligning the NDC with the Paris rule book and strengthening and framing and alignment of SDGs. Let me go to the next slide. Okay, so this is about in terms of RED Plus contribution to NDC enhancement. Many national RED Plus strategies finalized after the INDCs were submitted, which I mentioned before. So this became, and many of these became INDCs, automatically became the NDCs in most cases. And in this case, a specific quantification of the role of forest tend to be lacking. So for example, Kenya, while the NDC recognizes a major contribution to emissions and this agriculture and forestry and other land use is included in SCAPE, there's no reference to RED Plus in the first NDC. Global land use data approach used and significant uncertainty in the business as BAU scenario and mitigation potential estimates for the LULUCF sectors are explicitly stated. The other example on Cambodia explicitly refers to planned NDC improvement based on their RED Plus strategy. And though actions for LULUCF are presented as a conditional contribution, a precise list of actions and the GHG impacts will be updated after the finalization of the RED Plus strategy. Yeah, so we know what RED Plus stands for. I think the previous speakers mentioned. And then these could be easily updated, improved now that the RED Plus strategies have been finalized, endorsed, and estimates have maybe improved with ongoing FRL and MRV work. So this can be seen as a quick win for NDC enhancement. And then another example, Ecuador from another region of the world is an example of already having enhanced the NDC through its RED Plus process. So as of April 2020, 4 countries, actually 4 climate promise countries have submitted their updated NDCs to the UNFCCC, UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And all 4 demonstrated significant enhancement compared to their first NDC. So these include Ecuador and Suriname, which were submitted in 2019, and more recently Moldova and Chile, who submitted in actually March and April of this year. Also, UNDP provided comprehensive support in Ecuador, Moldova, Chile, and provided targeted contributions on adaptation and forestry sector in Suriname. Okay. So this is again REDD plus contribution to NDC implementation. Other examples where UNDP supported, actually other examples where UNDP supported NDC can be looked into the Kafi region. So the Central Africa Forestry Initiative in Congo, DRC and Gabon. And then there's in the slide, we're talking about several examples where REDD+ strategies investment plans have been supported and also well reflected in their NDC. So, so which kind of corresponding level of detail is contained within the NDC and REDD+ specifically with a more broadly kind of quantified targets and specific reference to national REDD+ strategy. So in Ghana, NDC was submitted in 2015, and the national REDD+ strategy was developed the same year and is well reflected in the NDC. And the NDC specifies 5 components to meet the policy goals of the agriculture, forest, and other land use sector. So yeah, and you can see the title of this, and there are, in these cases, REDD+ work can actually feed into NDC implementation and investment plans, and also REDD+ results-based payment feedback into the NDC implementation. So in the interest of time, I move to the next slide. This is about REDD+, MRV, and Enhanced Transparency Framework. So REDD+ readiness work on forest emission reference levels, forest, so all forest reference levels, which is FRL, and National Forest Monitoring System, has led to many REDD+ countries having an unprecedented level of detail in terms of their LULUCF, GHG emission and removals profile. They strengthen capacities related to forest data collection and analysis that provide a foundation to meet their enhanced transparency framework requirements, and also enhance experience with the REDD+ FREL for FREL technical assessments, and the REDD+ Annex BUR, REDD+ Annex technical analysis processes are promoting improvements in the country's GHG estimates for forest-related emissions and removals. Then more robust data collection, improved uncertainty analysis will build greater confidence in their NDCs. Okay, so now I have a few slides that are looking into more kind of aligning of the 2030 agenda and the SDGs and NDCs and kind of lessons learned and practical experiences. So this is another document. This is a title of the document that provides this kind of lessons learned and practical guidance. And this is again available online that you can download. And so at the national level, I mean, okay, let me actually not go through all the, I think I can cover this in the next slide. Yes, but kind of overall, the key message of this kind of the alignment is that this is not an immediate quick process. This process needs to start when the linkages are easiest, and the kind of another main point is about all of government approach. So all ministry sectors need to work together, opportunities to recognize the links between climate change and development, and also promoting action on both agendas in an integrated way is the kind of only way to effectively meet both agreements. So I'm gonna move to my next slide. So even though the two global processes with the SDGs and 2030 agenda and the NDCs, they were negotiated at the same time, the negotiators recognized that the
please turn off the microphone unless you are a speaker, please.
So yes, thank you. So the negotiators recognize the linkages and synergies between them and opportunity to reinforce each other. So, but they do remain distinct processes. So that's why we have these two different processes. That 2030 agenda led to kind of top-down universal sustainable development goals. So these are globally defined universal goals, which is referring to both developed and developing countries, and universal targets. As we know, 17 goals, 169 targets, and 400 something indicators. Then the Paris Agreement led to bottom-up, country-specific and country-determined, nationally determined contributions. So from INDC process, we moved to the NDCs. But so these are kind of separate, but they're not operating in isolation. So there's reference, reference can be made to substantive overlaps between the two processes. So when we go into the implementation stage, this is very important to keep in mind. Okay, and then let me go into the, so that's why you can see this kind of, they are not in isolation, they have connections with each other. Okay, so in the next slide, UNDP, as we work in, we have presence in 170 countries and territories, and we have climate change related programs in 145 or so countries. UNDP does have experience supporting countries on both streams of work, on nationally determined contributions as well as SDGs. And in terms of, based on this experience, we have also identified specific entry points as opportunities for strengthening alignment between the processes. And we do have this unique experience in terms of supporting countries to develop their INDCs, the intended nationally determined contributions, leading also global public consultations to define the SDGs. I think many of us recall the entire process of the post-2015 consultation process, which led to the SDGs, the 17 SDGs. So it was a kind of a worldwide consultation process. And also most recently from UNDP, we have supported governments in designing and implementing the NDCs and SDG roadmaps to meet these commitments on both ends. So building on this experience across a range of countries and development contexts, 9 entry points have been identified as critical for fostering greater complementary between the NDCs and SDGs. And these are presented in aligning nationally determined contribution and sustainable development goals. So in I guess the picture I was showing, sorry if I can go back. So this document, yeah. So the 9 entry points are shown there, and along with some initial question. Okay, so along with some initial questions and considerations to start the alignment processes. And examples of UNDP's experience in countries are also provided in this document to illustrate how these entry points translate in a country context. Okay, let me then move to my next slide. Yeah, so since in terms of the institutions and governance, you can see distinct national processes for design. So NDCs are updated for every 5 years. SDG localization process, there are distinct global reporting requirements, and then there are the national reporting processes. So since 2016, 142 countries have presented their on their voluntary national reviews, which are called VNRs, at the high-level political forum, which is usually held in New York in July each year. And so this is held under the auspices of the Economic and Social Council. I'm not sure for COVID-19 if we will have physical meetings or probably a web-based meeting for this year's HLPF. But this is where the countries have been presenting. So we have 142 countries so far. And then some countries have carried out the second and even third VNRs, resulting in a total 158 VNR presentations. So
please turn off your microphone.
So at the last HLPF in July 2019, 47 countries conducted their VNRs. And okay, so, and then, on the right side of the slide, you are looking into the challenges and opportunities in terms of these processes. The processes initiated at global level through distinct channels, which remains a challenge, but opportunities to tie both to national development implementation processes and using one process as an opportunity to inform the other. So, okay, let me just move. I think I have only a few slides left. Okay. So again, this is a second slide also looking into the kind of institutions and governance. And, as I mentioned about the requirements of reporting, different requirements which lead to different systems that have been developed, similar types of data and assessments required for both. So while the reporting requirements are challenges and coordination and sharing of data remains a challenge, where there are like different parties being responsible in different ends. But again, opportunities to link integrated systems to reduce the duplication and also increase the efficiency by using the same data. And also, so these are kind of the drivers of actions. I think we can say that there are separate set of actors, and the challenge is how to make sure they collaborate, and there is a coordination mechanism in place, and also policy frameworks and legal frameworks or law that are placed in place to support these arrangements, and ensuring the policy coherence of SDGs and NDCs so that they are grounded in national development and sectoral policy strategies and framework. And also looking into what stock taking has been done of existing policies related to SDGs and NDCs. And is there alignment among priorities, targets, and commitments? And also, are there new policies and strategies and opportunity for alignment in terms of capacity building, trainings, dialogues, technical support, awareness building? These are activities that are also provide opportunity to educate and address common gaps and needs. So in that also brings us to the kind of an issue of identifying the capacity needs for NDCs and also SDGs. And also, and the data issue remains very important. It's because of the broad range of data needed to design and implement and monitor both NDC and SDG processes. There is this overlap of data needs, and which brings a question: who is which data is being already collected, and where it sits, where the data sits, who is managing the data, how the sharing of the data, and also what system are in place or are still needed. Okay, and then this is this slide we're talking about the cross-cutting aspects.
Right, Sarwat, we are heading toward the end of this session soon. So if you need more time, of course, you can go ahead. Okay, but just to keep in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chang. Yeah, I have just a couple of slides. So let me just, so cross-cutting in terms of data sharing arrangements, the challenge between actors and institutions, and also interpretation and analysis of multiple data sets. But the opportunity here is streamlining the generation and management processes can reduce the duplication and increase efficiency. So the overlap of data needs exist, and also broad range of data that are needed to design, implement, and monitor. So key message, I think, would be that this is not this alignment of SDGs and the national determined contribution that are not immediate quick process, which I had mentioned early on when I was looking at the showing the document. So, but the need is there to start linkages where they're easiest, looking to the all of government approach, and also linking climate change and development, sustainable development goals, and opportunity to promote action on both agendas in an integrated way. So that would be the only way to effectively meet both agreements for national context. There's a couple of documents that we have prepared on specifically on NDCs, and this with an World Resources Institute in terms of enhancing NDCs, and also enhancement opportunities in forest and land use sector that are downloadable. And yes, so this I think is my last slide. So I do want to acknowledge my colleague Kim Todd, who is based in New York, who has really supported me on this PowerPoint preparation, and also the entire natural capital and environment and climate and forest team. I'm part of this team member in Seoul, but we have a huge team in New York, in Geneva, and as I mentioned, different regional centers, including in Ethiopia and also Bangkok in Asia Pacific region. So we have forestry experts working in different countries, as well as forestry advisors. And I guess one point I wanted to make about the COVID-19 process, and with the COVID-19, we are, the UNDP's climate promise, which I was explaining, as part of our organizational approach for COVID-19. Climate promise is now working to strengthen different countries' abilities to prepare, because different countries are facing COVID at different stages now. So prepare, respond, as well as recover from the economic downturn, and also social aspects of COVID. So, and the 5 services that I was showing on climate promise, we are helping countries to adjust and adapt their NDC design elements and implementation activities in an inclusive and integrated manner. So even from the UNDP Seoul Policy Center, we had we are doing a number of webinars in terms of COVID-19 response and recovery approaches, looking into different sectoral initiatives in Korea and other countries. But we are also looking into, for example, green recovery issues. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a webinar looking into the Green New Deal plan that's happening in Korea and in other developing country contexts, which Professor Chong participated in. And yeah, so this is kind of a ongoing process with COVID-19, as we know. And I think, as has been mentioned before, climate change, biodiversity, ecosystem challenges have not stopped. So it's very important that the work continues. And in some cases, COVID-19 is exacerbating these challenges, and also the socio-economic part, gender challenges. These are also very important in the context of COVID-19 in looking to forestry sector. And from UNDP, in UN country teams in different developing countries that we are based in, UNDP is taking the lead on the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 processes and how we can work together to support countries to meet the challenges. So I think I will end here. Thank you, Professor Chong, and thank you, everyone.
Right. Thank you, Sarwat. It was a really comprehensive and actually consolidated, presentation. It gives us, full information about how UNDP has been working on not only implementation of the NDC, and also in the context implemented SDGs as well. And then we found that this is not just your own preparation, it was a result of teamwork throughout the world within the UNDP. And I really appreciate your contributions to our workshop in that regard as well. I know that there may be many questions, but we are running out of time a little bit. So my suggestion is that if that is okay with you, then I will test some of the questions that has been raised by participants to you later, so that you can, if necessary, you can respond to them by email. Also, we will upload her presentation file if that is okay with Sarwat later on. So everybody will have a chance to have an access and review her presentation again. Also, YouTube is available as well. So everything will facilitate what training, my people in this room might want to do more with you. Okay, so once again, it's a very late night in Seoul. And then Sarwat, thank you very much. And then we will keep in touch. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a good weekend, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.